Welcome everybody. We're really glad you're here, and we want the elements to come out, and it should be a good program today. So we appreciate you taking the time to be here. For those of you who have not had a chance to meet, my name is Ray Comiskey. I'm the president here at Jefferson College, and on behalf of the college, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our second installment of our speaker series. We had one a couple of weeks ago. I unfortunately had to be out of town, but we talked about wolves and their natural habitat, and this week we're going to talk about the Civil War. So you can see we cover a wide range of topics and interests throughout the speaker series. So we appreciate your support, and if you happen to have an idea for a lecture you'd like to hear, why be sure to let myself or Terry know, because we're always on the hunt for great programs. I think we have one today. Before we get into that, a couple of quick college business announcements. First and foremost, I want to point out to you on your table you have some PACE programs, and I really want to compliment our faculty and staff for really driving this process. You're going to see we're offering a large number of cultural arts programming of different types and styles, so I'm sure you'll find something to interest you. So we encourage you to support the arts and come out and hear some of these great performances and see some great art shows and the like. I think you'll find it worth your time. Also, we'll put in a shameless plug for a couple of events we have coming up. Our biggest is tomorrow. For those of you who like vintage cars, I used to say old cars, but then everybody always tells me, well, I used to have one of those, so I don't do that anymore. We are having a car show here at the college tomorrow, but it's really more than, it's called Motorama, and it's really more than just a car show. We'll of course have classic cars. We're supposed to have some monster trucks, there's supposed to be some vintage tractors, motorcycles. It's going to be a wide variety of vehicles here, so if you have any interest along that way, it will be a brisk but sunny day, I'm told, so please come out. The proceeds to this event go to support not only the College Foundation, but the Jefferson County Growth Association as well. So come down, and while you're there, if you come, say, it's after lunch and you stroll around the grounds and you enjoy a lovely car show, and you feel like you need to really get your blood pumping, we have an excellent soccer game at 2 o'clock right down at the field. So you can get all your excitement here at the college in, and when that game ends up, then you can head into Festus and enjoy the Balloon Globe. You can have a full day off A Highway, I'm just saying. Oh yeah, don't want to forget, thank you, it's important to have your wife here so that she can make sure you don't forget anything. So we also this weekend are having a play, which is Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon, I believe. I think I've got that right. And we would encourage you to, after Balloon Globe, come back and catch that, because that's what I'm going to do. So please support the college in any way you can. All right, a couple of groups I want to recognize before we get into our program. First of all, we do have, once again, the Young at Heart group from the Zion Lutheran Church here with us today. So we're glad you're here. Bruce Keene, there he is back here. Our county public administrator has joined us today. We appreciate that. Tim Patterson, retired judge and Rotary member, is here with us today. And if you have any questions about how your proceeds are used when you support the College Foundation, Rick Vest from our College Foundation board is here as well. So he's there in the back, and he can tell you how wisely we use those funds to support students. So thank you, Rick, for being here. All right, our program today has a historical note to it, and I'm pleased to introduce Carole Goggin. She's a professional researcher, speaker, and lecturer in the fields of genealogy and history. Genealogy is mentioned about a dozen times in this thing, so if I screw it up, please bear with me. Her areas of interest are Jefferson County and early St. Louis, especially in the areas of family and history. She has spoken at many local and state annual genealogical conferences and has presented to schools and churches, youth and civic organizations, and to businesses such as Ameren UE, Merrimack Caverns, and Washington State Park. Carole's been teaching genealogical courses for Jefferson College Continuing Ed Department since 2000. She's a member of the Jefferson County and St. Louis, guess what, Genealogical Societies, is vice president of the Jefferson County Historical Society, and is a member in good standing with the Association for Professional Genealogist. So please join me in welcoming Carole Goggin.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. The first thing a genealogist learns is how to spell the word genealogy. Yeah, dim the lights a little. Is that possible? Okay. While we're killing a little bit of time, if you'd like to look at this afterwards, this is a .69 caliber musket ball that was found by Doug Roussan with permission at the site where I will be talking about today. And today's lecture is based on John Hampton Hollingsworth's book, The Battle of Blackwell. Okay. And since Mr. Kavitsky took half of my intro, I do all that, and I use the moniker History Talks, not just because I give history talks, but when history talks, Carole listens. And today we're going to listen to history talk to us about the battle at Big River Bridge. Now, John has written the book, and we've collaborated. He has given me permission to do this presentation based on his book. There were two small battles that happened that one day, one in Jefferson County and the other in St. Francis County. And since my focus is Jefferson County, you're only going to hear the Jefferson County half of the story today. Okay. And it happened the very first year that the Civil War started. But I'm going to back up and talk about in 1821 that Missouri entered the Union as a slave state. Now, do you know who entered as a free state? Maine. Okay, very good, Maine. That was the Missouri Compromise. It kept a balance then between the free and slave states as they entered the Union. In 1861, most of Missouri was sympathetic to the South, except for those few prosperous people who lived in the St. Louis area. They felt no man should own another man, but at the same time, they wanted to keep their slaves. They were called fence sitters. But down in Jefferson County, the secessionists, okay, I have a lot of big words that I'm going to follow up by the definitions because I do this with the Boy Scouts, and they don't always know the things that we know as an adult. So that you know that the secessionists were a group of men who felt that the state of Missouri should separate from the Union and join the other so-called southern states. They decided to hold a rally in DeSoto. And there are several versions to this story, but the one I heard goes like this. On May 10th of 1861, there were about 75 mounted State Guard troops known as the Dixie Boys, and they decided to erect a flagpole, to have a grand parade, and to make music and speeches. And while this grand patriotic display was in progress in front of the Arlington Hotel, it was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a train from St. Louis bearing two companies of U.S. Federal, Northern, infantry troops. Needless to say, the Dixie Boys scattered, but the rebel flag was successfully hidden by a woman sitting on the porch at the Arlington. It was under her skirts. Okay, another version of the story was that the flag was torn down and taken by the Union troops. But the Union also then confiscated the local secessionists' printing press, which of course closed the newspaper office, and they arrested a half a dozen or so Southern sympathizers. Now this uncivil war, as some might say, began in 1861, and excuse me, the inventions now at our disposal for use in war that had not been used for previous wars included the telegraph, the repeating rifle, and the submarine. Now, you would think these were pretty good weapons of war, but the most significant, does anyone want to take a guess? Yeah, the railroad. Who said that? Give that man a cookie. When I do my classes, I throw candy to people who can answer questions, but we just ate lunch. Okay, well, yes, it was the railroad, and since the Union, the North, was in control of the railroad, it could move the troops and supplies, such as guns and food, quickly and easily, whereas the Union or the North could stay put and food and supplies were quickly delivered by the Iron Horse, the Confederates, the rebels, the South, were always on the move, searching for food and forage. So by holding the railroad, the Union could hold the state of Missouri. Logically, the Southern strategy then would be to break the Northern hold on the railroad. And following that same track of thought, did you get the pun? Okay, same track of thought. The North was in constant need of protecting the railroad. But wait, there was one more invention, one that any soldier could carry in his pocket. That was the phosphorus match. Excuse me. And did you know that during the summer of 1861, there was an epidemic of bridge burning in Missouri? Just think what one Confederate could do with a box of matches. He could stop 1,000 Federal soldiers by burning a single wooden bridge. And Jefferson County had 13 such bridges. Now, if you notice the flag in the corner, I will be switching back and forth as I talk about Northern or Union activities. The flag will change for the Southern or the Confederate or the Rebel activities. Again, this was to help the kids keep track with what side I was talking about. So, August of 1861, a young Illinois colonel by the name of U.S. Grant was sent to Fort Davidson, and he was charged with the duties to, 1, protect and secure the railroad between St. Louis and the end of the line at Pilot Knob. Grant also ordered the erection of a small redoubt within rifle shot of all larger bridges. Now, picture number 2 is the remains of a redoubt that is within rifle shot distance of the railroad located at the north end of DeSoto and at the southwest corner of 110 and Main Street. It's approximately 150 yards from the railroad track. So by the end of the month, the Iron Mountain Railroad had become a fortified Union Army post 86 miles long by 8 feet wide. Grant's next move was to order ironclads, or ships with iron plates on the outside, to be built by James Eads in St. Louis. Yes, the James Eads of Eads Bridge, which came 13 years later. And while Grant was otherwise involved in forward planning, way down south, southeast Missouri, Brigadier General M. Jeff Thompson wanted to make a strike for victory for the Confederacy. Thompson was a self-made man. He remade himself to become whatever his energies and ambitions could make him. He came from Virginia to make his fortune in Missouri and served as mayor of St. Joe, a surveyor, a poet, a storekeeper, a horse doctor, a politician, a railroad speculator, a banker, an investor, a civic booster, and an ardent supporter of the South. And with the coming of the war, he reinvented himself as a dashing Confederate or Southern Army officer, having no military experience at all. He was tall and slim and dressed in a peculiar version of Missouri State Guard uniform by wearing a white cape, black boots, a slouch hat with feather, a large white-handled Bowie knife at the small of his back that was secured with a red sash tied around his waist. He must have been something to look at, especially when seated upon his magnificent gray dappled Arabian horse named Sardanapalus. And I usually have the kids repeat that name with me. And always with General Thompson was his manservant and kindred spirit, Ajax the Indian, a real live fighting Indian who was also trained in show business, having been the proprietor of a showboat on the Missouri River before the war. Ajax was just as flamboyant as his boss. He could be seen wearing feathers entwined in his hair and armed to his teeth with a pistol, scalping knife, and a tomahawk protruding wickedly from his belt. As I was creating this presentation, I went out on the internet to see what I could find on Ajax, the Indian. Nothing came up but these toys. I had these in my toy box when I was young. I see other heads nodding. So apparently, that's exactly what this is called, Ajax the Indian and His Horse by Lido Products. Somebody remembered and brought that forward. And these toys were actually popular from the 1930s through the late 60s. Well, the Southern General, Albert Sidney Johnston, rationalized, well, the same railroad that transported the Union troops from the north to the south was one and the same that carried the raw iron from the south to the north, from our mines just south of here to the mills in St. Louis. So if a rebel force could cut the railroad for any length of time, it would not only break the Union's grip on southeast Missouri, it could also stop the supply of iron that was to be used to make the ironclad ships. And if he were lucky, he might make a capture of food, supplies, and arms, as well as the precious lead, all of which the South badly needed. General Johnston's objective was to get Grant and the other local troops to fall back to St. Louis, where they would have to passively protect that area. Then this would allow the Confederates to almost walk right in. Following the Confederate victories at Bull Run and Wilson Creek, young men of the Union answered the volunteer call with determined, clear-eyed patriotism. A college professor named Hovey, the founder and president of Illinois' Normal Teachers College, located in Normal, Illinois, not because they were normal people, came up with the idea of raising a regiment of teachers with himself as colonel. His regiment was composed entirely of teachers. They mustered into service for the Illinois 33rd Company and were known as the Brains by their admirers and the cracked brains by the rest of the Army. The men of the 33rd probably did have the highest IQ of either army, but that did not mean they always knew best. These school teachers turned soldiers were loaded onto flat cars and rode from Illinois south, right through the fertile fields of Jefferson County to Pilot Knob. From Pilot Knob, they were actually sent right back up the lines to relieve 3 other companies. Company K was stationed at Lawson Mill in Washington County, today known as Tiff. Company E, under the command of Colonel Isaac H. Elliott, was stationed just north of Big River near Vineland, and that's what we'll be talking about, that troop. And Company B was stationed even further north at Victoria. And while preparing for camp at the Big River Bridge, Company E, under the command of Colonel Elliott, caught wind that a local farmer, Mr. Higginbotham, was feeding rebels. And his farm was of many acres located in and around the intersection today of Highway 21 and CC, the area that we call fertile. And if any of you know, the Old Mines Area Historical Society has a fete there every year. That will be this Sunday if you're interested in going. It's a wonderful event. It's from 11 to 5, and they serve their dumplings at 3 o'clock. Okay, commercial over. The 33rd immediately marched over and arrested Mr. Higginbotham and his sons, found a stash of rifles in a barn, and Colonel Elliott made the grand announcement. He pronounced the slaves freed. Then he directed the rifles to be given to the slaves, and then they were to hold them on their ex-masters. And the whole crew marched down to Mineral Point, caught the train down to Pilot Knob, and then marched to Fort Davidson. The commander at the post immediately freed the Higginbothams and returned their guns and slaves, and all were sent back home. The object of the war, to the brains of the 33rd, were to free the slave. But to the President of the United States, it was to keeping all of the states together in the United States. So after this embarrassing incident, Company E kept busy harassing the local farmers, flirting with their daughters, and practicing with their rifles. They settled into routine of camp life by guarding the bridge, stealing chickens around Wilson Hollow, Vineland, and Blackwell Station. On October 12th of 1861, following General Johnston's plan, Jeff Thompson and his troops were coming up from the south, while up in St. Louis, the first ironclad ship, the Carondelet, was being launched. It was a steam-powered, iron-armored vessel of which 8 sister ships were expected to be launched 1 per week. That is, unless something bad were to happen to the iron supply or the railroad. Now, at Big River Bridge, not at Big River Bridge, but working up to this now, Johnson's plans for the Confederate troops, with about 2,000 men, was to converge at Fredericktown and plunder the local lead smelters. But Thompson, riding Sardanapalus, and 500 troops in 2 columns made directly to Big River Bridge. Included were volunteers from the state of Mississippi and, of course, Thompson's ever-present orderly, Ajax. Thompson's own plan was to come to Jefferson County, burn Big River Bridge, then to follow the tracks south, burning bridges behind him. And if he captured a train, so much the better. As he moved towards Blackwell Station and the Big River Bridge, he invited patriotic men from the neighborhoods of Iron County, St. Genevieve, St. Francis, and Washington counties to join him in driving the northern invaders from their soil. It's kind of funny that we here in Jefferson County were called rebels when actually we were a slave state. On October 15th, Thompson and his ever-present Ajax and 400 men reached Blackwell Station before dawn. For safety's sake, Thompson had left a detachment of men at crossroads in his rear. Now he split his men into 4 columns. Each moved over the darkness and over unfamiliar terrain, but were led by local boys who knew the area like the back of their hand. Remembering Captain Elliott had sent squads up the track to Victoria and had left squads in his rear, and now he only had 40 men with him. Elliott and the few men that were left with him set up camp on the east side of a railroad cut. The east side faces the Mississippi River. This is the east side. At the first light of day, a call went up the hill to Company E after a guard by the bridge gave a shout and fired a warning shot. He had spotted a Reb moving in the woods. A terrific crashing volley of lead ball from the rebels' first column rained up into the Yankee camp on top of the hill. Being just before dawn, the men of Company E had not yet risen, but as soon as the firing began, they rolled out of their sleeping sacks, and without hat, coat, or shoes, they crouched behind a low stone wall to avoid the hail of incoming lead balls. Along with his men, Captain Elliott returned fire and kept in the action till he was shot through the elbow. Thompson's diversion had worked. A second column of Confederates had circled wide to the west of the fighting and crept up the opposite cut behind Company E and began firing into the unguarded rear of the 33rd. At the same time, Jeff Thompson with columns 3 and 4 charged across the railroad bridge. It's then that Elliott hoisted the white wool blanket on the end of a bayonet. He had had enough. Instantly, the flag was shot up, then a quiet pause, followed by loud cheering, and the rebels charged up the hill, leaped over the stone wall, and took the camp. The fighting lasted 10 minutes. General Thompson paroled the prisoners, which meant they had to promise not to bear arms and fight for the Union again, and then they were free to go home. Afterwards, Thompson's men carried their plunder back over the river to Blackwell Station. Soon he and his men were gazing upon the splendid bridge enveloped in flames. Beyond the blazing bridge in the railroad cut, Captain Elliott and the brains of Company E watched the smoke rise into the blue October sky and waited for a train to come take them back to St. Louis. The story continues in St. Francis County with another skirmish at Blackwell Station just a few hours later, but I'm not going to talk about that today. But I do want to show you where the story happened if you would like to go visit for yourself. Trying not to detach wires. This is Highway 21 going south into Washington County. For those of you who are familiar with the area, if you're driving south on 21, there's 3 Vineland roads on the left-hand side. The first 2 is just Vineland School Road, and then Vineland circling in and coming back out. So if you were to go to the 3rd Vineland Road on the left, and it's across from a street named Perkins, you would turn left onto this road, Vineland, and then you just hang a right at Norp and a right at Wilson Hollow Road. Take that all the way to the very bottom, and there's a cul-de-sac. There used to be a car bridge that went over Big River and into St. Francis County, but the bridge, when it fell down, collapsed, or whatever, it was taken down. It was never replaced. Our story, our little battle, happened right here in this area. And if you were to go there today, there was a group of people who got together over a course of 2 or 3 years to raise the money to have this monument erected at the site, and it has both stories on it. This is a story, they call it the story of Vineland Bridge, and this is the story of Blackwell Station. Now, if you live in Jefferson County and you talk about that bridge, it'd be the bridge to Blackwell. But if you lived in St. Francis County and you talk about that bridge, it's the bridge to Vineland. So we had a tussle as to really what to name the area. And so the monument is titled The Battle of Big River Bridge. And then there are the 2 separate stories. And you can just see the peak of the monument down here, and the train, today's train, heading into the cut, heading north. So it's going coming from St. Francis County into Jefferson County. And I hope you've enjoyed my little story of the Battle of Big River Bridge, the Jefferson County half of the story of the Battle of Blackwell by John Hollingsworth. And the book is available for purchase. It's also at all of our local libraries. I have 2 copies here with me today. They're $10. And I hope you get a chance to visit the monument, and I thank you for having me today.
If you have questions, you might want to stump Carole. That's the trick.
You will stump me. I am not a Civil War buff. I'm a mouthpiece.
Yes, sir.
Where did the South get the nitrates to make black powder? I never got that straight.
I can't answer that.
You've already stumped the band. Congratulations.
Okay, we're done now. I am not a Civil War buff.
They process it out of soil. And I think Merrimack Caverns produce a lot too.
Okay, the question was, where did they get the
Black powder.
the nitrate to make the black powder? And the answer was
It's not the answer.
It's
but
shown
it can
at-
be taken out of soil.
taken out of the soil. And
It
it's
can also
shown,
be mined in caves and whatnot.
mined in caves, and apparently Merrimack Caverns has a display of the phosphorus.
Potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal.
Okay, I'm not going to quote that. I don't want to make it.
Yeah.
Not only that, where did they get the lead to make the war balls for their rifles?
The lead mines. Leadington, Ironton, Potosi. If you were to follow this railroad line, the railroad was actually now we're talking my stuff. The history of DeSoto was because Fletcher and Rankin knew that a railroad was being laid from St. Louis down to the lead mines. So that's what actually brought the town of DeSoto to fruition. But that was the lead coming up from the mines. And we had shot towers much earlier on our Mississippi bluffs. And if you want me to keep going, I will. It's very interesting, the shot tower being like 100 feet high, being up on top of this huge bluff.
Well, you might as well keep going because we're not going anywhere.
Okay, we got 20 minutes. They would melt the lead until liquefied, and I may not have all the correct terms, but as they dropped it over the bluff, just straight down into our pure sands that are so pure, Crystal City, the plate glass company used those sands to make plate glass. The drop of lead would form a perfect ball as it fell, and then once it hit the water and the soft sands, it cooled in the water, and they had their shot. And those, I know for a fact that lead was used without singing the song of Bonaparte's retreat in 1814. That's where the shot came from.
They also had gold.
Whatever happened to,
They had gold.
used to have a line that were between the Confederates and Union, 54-40 or fight.
It's in Sand.
54-40 or fight, before my time. I've heard of it. I don't know where the line is. Do we have any answers for? Where is the line at 54-40?
David?
Up in Washington State, because that was the defining of the Battle of Canada. They were trying to extend Washington on north into Canada, and they wound up extending the line west all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Okay. Up at the state of Washington, when they were trying to define the border between Canada and Washington, that's where the 54th, is it a parallel? 54-40 or 5. You're welcome. Any other questions that somebody else can answer? It's working out well.
Well, we've got a couple quick giveaways to do very quickly, and while you're thinking of another question.
Question?
Over in Purple Lane, it's called Shot Put, Deal or something.
The shot tower was in Herky. Actually, I think there was two. There was one just a little bit north of Herculaneum, but there were mines at Herky in 1830-ish, I think. And the lead from the Herky mine was being made into shot just north at what was called New Hartford at the time.
I know where it is. My son proposed to his wife on that hill.
Okay.
David has a question back.
When we talk about the flags of the Civil War, we have the state flags, we have the battle flags, and many people seem to think that the only flag for the Civil War was the battle flag, and the crosses in the taking up the whole of the flag. I've been working on Jefferson County Veterans Hall of Honor, and we had to deal with, wrestle with that issue. Who is a veteran from the Civil War that we honor? We wound up saying that both, or each I said, should say, fought for their position, which was fine. But it's that Civil War that finally took the issue that Benjamin Franklin and Adams and all those people that when they wrote the Constitution could not come to an agreement on. And they put it aside. Well, we finally decided that it's Civil War. But the battle flag, to me, is a divisive flag. And people have very strong feelings on it. And we have been trying to come together, now it's 150 years. We've been trying to come together and join us as a nation. And that's been a terribly, terribly hard process for many reasons. And so I personally try to think of not the battle flag, but of the state flags that they had, which was the other flag with the three stripes in the field and the circle of stars, that is a better representation of what the South was, rather than the divisive representation that the battle flag caused. And I would present that to you as an idea to think about and see what people think about that.
Were you okay with the flags then that I used?
Oh, absolutely.
Most people will recognize the stars and bars, the crisscross with the as the Confederate flag, but the other flag that I had that had the red, the white, and red stripe with a blue field with a circle of stars was actually the Confederate flag of the time, or the Missouri flag for the South at the time.
Before 1861, how many slaves were owned in Missouri? Not Missouri, Jefferson County.
I can't give you an exact number, but the federal census records do have the slave counts for 1850 by owner. It will just give an owner's name, and it will tell you a slave male age 18, a slave female age 17. So somebody who does genealogy might be able to answer that for you with some research.